Welcome to 10 Hut Media's insider look at the future of fiction. Today we're breaking down 6 major trends that are reshaping how readers find and consume stories, from Amazon's dominance to TikTok's viral book buzz. By 2030, the publishing landscape will look very different, and authors will need to know what's coming. Let's dive in. Amazon's Kindle platform is the 800-pound gorilla of the book world. Its subscription program, Kindle Unlimited, aka KU, has grown into a Netflix for books with over 4 million titles available. Each month, Amazon pays indie authors from a global fund based on pages read. And that KDP Select Global Fund keeps hitting new highs. Over $57 million was paid out in March of 2025 alone. In fact, the total KU pays out climbed from about $522 million in 2022 to $645 million in 2024, a double-digit annual growth as more readers subscribe. By the numbers, KU subscribers worldwide are estimated at 4 to 5 million. They read voraciously, roughly 41 million books in a month collectively, over 12 billion pages. On an average, a KU member reads 9 books a month, far more than a typical reader. Top genres on KU mirror the broader market, with romance, fantasy, and mystery and thrillers most popular, especially romance, which 35% of KU readers cite as their favorite genre, versus 25% for non-KU readers. Enrolling in KU requires Amazon exclusivity, but it can pay off in high-volume genres. Over 85% of all KU titles are self-published, and KU has become the key channel for indie romance and fantasy authors to find fans. However, authors are paid about 42 cents to the dollar per 100 pages. So, success often means publishing prolifically to accumulate pages. Amazon hasn't changed the per-page payout model recently. The 70% royalty on outright rebook sales remains standard. But the sheer growth of KU means more competition for each reader's time. By 2030, expect Amazon to further refine their subscription model. The KU Global Fund could top $1 billion per year by late decade if growth continues, though Amazon might adjust terms. More authors and even more publishers are likely to participate as subscription reading becomes mainstream. But there's a catch. As KU becomes larger, going exclusive with Amazon might feel less optional for authors in popular genres. Keep an eye on emerging rivals like Kobo Puss or Scrib. But for now, KU's scale gives Amazon the power. A revolution in publishing is underway. Independent, self-published authors are capturing an ever-growing share of the market. No longer confined to a vanity niche, indie books now make up 30 to 34% of all ebooks sold. That's roughly 300 million self-published books sold each year, generating about $1.25 billion in sales. In the Amazon Kindle store, self-published titles count for 31% of ebook unit sales, a huge slice that will likely increase through 2030. Amazon alone pays over $520 million in royalties to self-pub authors each year. For context, that was virtually $0 2 decades ago. These earnings come from both KU pages read and direct ebook sales, where authors earn 70% of royalties on most sales. The global self-publishing market is even outpacing traditional publishing growth, projected 70% annual growth versus 1% for the overall publishing industry. In short, the indie sector is growing by double digits and grabbing more market share each year. Indie success is concentrated in genre fiction. Romance is the powerhouse, both in volume and growth. Recent data showed print sales of romance novels surging 52% in 2022, even as overall fiction rose 8.5%. Thanks to viral hits and renewed interest from younger readers, think Colleen Hoover and Book Talk favorites. In ebooks, romance and adjunct genres like romance fantasy or romantasy dominate the indie charts. In fact, Fantasy romance has recently overtaken paranormal romance as one of the fastest growing subgenres. Other strong indie genres include thriller, suspense, sci-fi, and YA fantasy, often catering to online fan communities. Notably, women drive a lot of this boom. 67% of the top-rated self-published books are by female authors, versus 39% for traditional publishers, reflecting how indie publishing has empowered voices that big publishers underserve. While the top indie authors are thriving, it's a winner-take-most environment. 1,000+ self-published authors earned over $100,000 last year on Amazon, showing that bestsellers can make a killing. And over 1,600 self-published authors, versus 1,200 traditionally published, now earn $25,000+ annually, among those who debuted in the past decade. However, the average self-published book sells only 250 copies, and a third of indie authors could make under $500 a year. In fact, about 90% of self-published books sell fewer than 100 copies. So, while indie publishing opens the doors to everyone, sustained success still requires savvy marketing, quality output, and often rapid release of multiple books. Indie publishing will continue its rise through 2030. We expect indie authors to claim an even bigger share of fiction sales, possibly over half of all ebook units sold in a few years. Faster-growing niches like serialized web novels, lit, RPG, and etc. could break out, and successful indie IPs might spur film or TV adaptations, further legitimizing self-publishing. At the same time, authors will face intense competition. More titles than ever. The number of self-published books has exploded to over 206% plus in the last 5 years. By 2030, there may be millions of indie books vying for readers' attention each year. The keys to thriving will be innovation and marketing, leveraging social media trends, and potentially collaborative models. Many predict more indie authors forming small collectives or profit-sharing teams for editing and marketing. Traditional publishers also are taking cues. We might see hybrids and like publishers signing successful self-pub authors or offering higher royalty profit share deals to compete. Overall, the stigma is gone. Being an indie author in 2030 will not only be common, but in many genres, the dominant way to reach readers. The hottest growth segment in publishing is audiobooks. For 11 years straight, audiobook revenue has grown by double digits, and it jumped another 9% in 2023 to hit $2.0 billion in US sales. More than 38% of American adults listen to at least one audiobook in the past year, up from 35% the year before. A steady climb means 140+ million people have tried audio now. Audiobooks have gone from a niche to mainstream. They're now 64% of all digital book sales revenue in fiction, and many readers, or listeners, swear by them for multitasking or commuting. The typical audiobook consumer listens to about 6 to 7 books a year, often on smartphones with apps. Demographically, audio listeners span all ages, but skew slightly younger and middle-aged, mid-20s to 50s. And a key segment is parents. 53% of parents who listen are also getting their kids into audiobooks as a screen-free alternative. Subscriptions drive a lot of audio. 63% of recent listeners subscribe to at least one audiobook service, like Audible or Spotify. Libraries are big too. Almost half of audiobook users, 46%, borrowed an audio title from a library last year via apps like Libby, expanding access. Audiobook fans tend to be book enthusiasts in general. Notably, heavy listeners often also read ebooks/prints. This indicates audiobooks add to total fiction consumption by filling time when people can't read physically. Fiction leads the way, accounting for 64% of audiobook sales. The top-selling genres are general fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, and romance, in that order. But interestingly, the fastest-growing audiobook genres recently have been nonfiction. History, biography up 22%, health and fiction 20%, and faith-based titles 17%, with romance also growing 14%. This suggests the audiobook audience is diversifying into all categories. For fiction authors, it's worth noting that full-cast audio dramas and dramatized podcasts are emerging, new ways to present stories in audio. Already, some serial fiction is released in podcast form to tap into this trend. Audiobook production is also getting easier. Many authors now produce their own narration from home studios, and AI narration technology is on the horizon, which by 2030 could make converting a text to audio cheaper, though possibly with creative and ethical implications. Audiobooks have changed when and how people consume stories. Busy readers who don't have time to sit and read now listen while driving, exercising, or doing chores. This keeps adults engaged with fiction who might otherwise drift away due to time constraints. For example, the average US adult's print reading time is only 15 minutes a day, but many spend hours in the car or on the go, and now those hours can be story time via Audible or Apple Books. Publishers and authors have noticed. Virtually every best-selling novel now gets simultaneous audiobook release, and even indie authors invest in audio to reach this growing audience. As a result, audiobook revenue has doubled over the past 5 years and is poised to keep climbing. By 2030, will more people listen to books than read them? It's possible. At the current growth rate, audiobook sales could rival ebook sales in revenue and maybe even approach print. We expect continued expansion of the listener base. Perhaps half of Americans or more will be audiobook consumers in some form. Key drivers will be tech integration, i.e., seamless in-car audiobook streaming, smart speakerphone usage, and international markets, English audiobooks finding global listeners. Also, AI-narrated audiobooks might flood the market by late 2020s. Amazon and Google are already working on high-quality AI voices. This could cost lower and allow every ebook to have an audio edition, increase supply dramatically. However, human narration and celebrity narrators will remain a premium feature that listeners seek out for quality. We might also see more original audio content, Audible originals, fiction podcasts, which do not have print counterparts. Further blurring the line, by 2030, some stories might be audio first. For authors, the takeaway is clear. Audio is essential. It's an opportunity to reach new readers, listeners, and should be part of your storytelling toolkit moving forward. If there's one wild card driving surprise booksellers today, it's social media, especially TikTok. The hashtag BookTok has amassed over 180 billion views on TikTok, spawning a new generation of book influencers and turning young readers into powerful tastemakers. In the past few years, we've seen years-old novels skyrocket to the top of the charts purely because they caught fire on TikTok. For example, Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us, published in 2016, became the best-selling adult fiction book of 2021 after going viral on BookTok, eventually selling over 4 million copies worldwide, largely due to TikTok buzz. Similarly, Adam Silvera's YA novel, They Both Die at the End, published in 2017, saw about 1,000% sales jump, moving hundreds of thousands of copies years after release, thanks to BookTok trends. This is an unprecedented phenomenon. Online communities resurrecting backlist titles and propelling new ones to massive audiences. TikTok's mostly young user base, majority under 35, has heavily boosted YA and romance categories. In the UK, 4 of the 5 top-selling YA novels in 2021 were BookTok driven. In the US, genres like contemporary romance, fantasy romance, romantasy, and tearjerker YA fiction have seen double or triple-digit sales increases due to viral TikTok recommendations. Publishers have taken note. You'll see TikTok made me buy it tables at Barnes & Noble and stickers on books that trend online. TikTok users themselves report reading more 48% say they read more books because of Book Talk, and the average TikTok book fan reads 60% more books after joining the community. Social media isn't just shifting what people read, but how much they read. It's made reading a shared viral experience for millions of young people. While TikTok is the headline, Instagram and YouTube also play more important roles. Bookstagram, the Instagram book community, features aesthetically pleasing photos of books, reviews, and recommendation reels. It's smaller in scale. The hashtag Bookstagram tag has 94 million hits versus BookTalk's hundreds of billions, but still influential, especially for niche literary circles. During the pandemic, book content on Instagram jumped 31% as influencers encouraged followers to read in lockdown. BookTube, book-themed YouTube channels, has been around longer. Popular booktubers review novels, do haul videos of book buys, and etc. Author John Green originally built his audience via YouTube before The Fault in Our Stars became a hit, illustrating how social media platform can springboard an author's career. Even Twitter, now X, has active communities. Hashtag writing community, hashtag am reading, though Twitter's influence on sales is less direct. Social media has given rise to certain tropes and subgenres becoming trendy. For instance, the enemies to lovers romance trope or fantasy with a strong female lead might catch fire as a meme on TikTok, leading to many readers seeking out books with those elements. Cover designs have also evolved. An eye-catching, TikTok-friendly cover can make a difference in whether a book gets picked up in someone's short video. Another trend is the revival of older titles. TikTok particularly loves backlist romance and YA. One stat in Canada showed that books 6 to 10 years old saw a 395% increase in sales from 2019 to 2022 if they trended on Book Talk, truly giving books a second life. For authors, this means your entire collection can suddenly blow up years later if the algorithm smiles upon you. Social media's grip on book discovery will likely strengthen through 2030, but the specific platforms may shift. TikTok is king now, but we should be ready for changes. Perhaps YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels takes a bigger slice if TikTok faces regulatory issues. However, the core behavior, readers forming communities online and hyping the books they love, is here to stay. Expect publishers to invest even more in influencer marketing, maybe forming formal partnerships with Book Talk creators or launching campaigns tailored to go viral. We might see new platforms, maybe an AI-driven book recommendation app that gains social traction by late in the decade. Also, genre impacts will evolve. Today, it's romance and YA, but tomorrow, maybe hashtag sci-fi talk or hashtag horror talk communities surge. One thing is certain, ignoring social media is not an option for authors. By 2030, successful book launches, whether indie or traditional, will almost always include a social media strategy, like teaser trailers on TikTok, character art on Instagram, author Q&As on YouTube Live, and more. The word of mouth that sells books is increasingly digital. The upside? A single authentic recommendation can launch a bestseller overnight in this environment. The challenge? It's unpredictable. We advise authors to engage genuinely on the platforms where their readers hang out. Build a following, interact, and let your stories be part of the conversation. Viral fame can't be forced, but you can make sure your book is in the mix when trends align. How people read is changing, and it's a story of divergence between formats and generations. Print books are still hanging on as the favorite format, but ebooks and audiobooks have carved out permanent places in readers' lives. And while overall book readership is steady, fiction reading for pleasure is on a decline that has industry watchers concerned. As of 2021, 75% of US adults reported reading at least one book in any format. In the past year, a figure remarkably steady for a decade. Print remains most common. 65% read a print book that year, but habits are shifting. 30% read an ebook, up from 25% a couple years prior, and roughly 25% listen to an audiobook, a number that's likely higher now given that 38% stat in 2023. Many readers are hybrid. Pew found about 1/3 of Americans read books in multiple formats, both print and digital. The ebook surge during the pandemic gave digital reading a boost, but interestingly, US ebook sales revenue actually slipped 8.5% in 2022 versus 2021 after a 2020 bump, indicating a plateau. Print sales had a strong 2020 to 2021, then cooled, but remaining robust for certain categories, print, romance booming as noted. Audiobooks, as we've discussed, continue to rise. By 2030, we anticipate an even three-way split in format preferences. Many readers will seamlessly switch between listening, reading on Kindle, and reading a physical copy, depending on convenience. Here's the worrying part. While any book reading is steady, reading fiction for pleasure is declining. A 2022 federal survey found only 48.5% of adults read at least one book for pleasure in the past year, down from 53% 5 years earlier. And only 37.6% of adults read at least one novel or short story in the year, the lowest fiction reading rate on record. A decade earlier, that figure was 45%. 30 years ago, it was well over 50%. In short, less than half of adults now read fiction regularly. This drop is concentrated among younger and middle-aged adults who have many competing entertainment options, or less free time. However, it's not because older people read more. In fact, Americans over 50 have somewhat higher rates of being non-readers, according to Pew, possibly due to lower tech adoption or habits. The most reliable book readers tend to be the college-educated. 73% of college grads read a book last year versus 44% of those with high school or less, and women slightly more than men. Interestingly, Pew found no major gender gap in overall book reading. But when it comes to fiction, specifically, women dominate, which aligns with the market. Women drive a majority of fiction sales, especially genres like romance. Kids and teens are reading less for fun, which could foretell future declines. The Nation's report card found that by 2023, only 14% of 13-year-olds read for pleasure, almost every day, down from 27% in 2012. For 9-year-olds, daily reading dropped from 53% to 39% over the last decade. This is a dramatic shift. Many kids are glued to screens, social media, games, instead of books. On the flip side, some young adults are reading more, spurred by book talk and fandoms. Gen Z actually reported reading slightly more books than millennials in one recent study, including a revival of library visits. So it's a complex picture. The average young person reads fewer books than in decades past, but those who do read might be reading a lot. Think of the ferocious YA fantasy fan. Demographically, women 18 to 30 have emerged as a key reading group, evidenced by their impact on book talk trends and romance genres. Meanwhile, men, especially young men, are the hardest to draw into fiction. Many publishers are concerned about the missing male reader for novels. Nonfiction and media like gaming and TVs capture their attention instead. The fundamental challenge is time. Americans average spend only about 15 to 16 minutes per day reading for pleasure, versus nearly 3 hours watching TV and video daily, and additional time on social media and games. In an era of smartphones, the attention economy is brutal for books. That said, dedicated readers find ways. Audiobooks turning commute time into reading time, or e-readers making it easy to carry a book everywhere. The pandemic lockdowns saw a temporary bump in reading, with many rediscovering books. But as life returned to its frantic pace, reading rates normalized or declined again. The next 5 years will test whether the publishing industry can engage the next generation of readers. On one hand, digital formats and social media hype are making reading more accessible and trendy for some. On the other hand, competition from streaming, gaming, and apps will only intensify. By 2030, we might see overall book readership slightly down if current trends continue, possibly closer to 70% of adults reading at least one book a year versus 75% now, as older generations who were frequent readers age out. Fiction reading might further erode unless there's a concentrated effort in libraries, schools, or via viral trends to boost it. We can envision new innovations, perhaps interactive storytelling or gamified fiction apps to lure in younger audiences, or stronger integration of books with other media. For example, Kindle apps showing short video trailers or AI content. Libraries and educators will play a role too. Initiatives to encourage reading in childhood could help buck the trend. Notably, women will remain the backbone of fiction reading. We expect genres catering to female readership, romance, book club fiction, and more, to flourish, while genres that traditionally had broader male readership, like serious literary fiction, may struggle unless they find new ways to market. One positive sign, Gen Z's engagement with stories on platforms like Wattpad, original fiction on social media-like platform, and Webtoon, webcomics, show that this love of story is still there, just taking new forms. By 2030, the definition of reading a book might expand. Young people might consume serialized fiction on a phone app, or listen to interactive narrative games. Authors and publishers will need to meet readers where they are in terms of format and attention span. Flexibility will be key. Offer your story as a paperback, an ebook, an audiobook, maybe even a bite-sized serial on an app. The more entry points, the better. Every author today isn't just competing with other books. You're competing with Netflix, TikTok, YouTube, video games, podcasts, the list goes on. In 2025, the average American adult spends about 12.5 hours per day consuming media of some kind, often multitasking. After work and sleep, there's basically all their free time. Here's how it breaks down and why it matters for fiction. TV and video, including streaming, remain the #1 leisure activity. Americans spend roughly 3 hours and 20 minutes per day watching TV or online videos. Social media gobbles up around 2+ hours per day on average. Globally, it's 2.5 hours. Think doom scrolling on Instagram, Snapchatting friends, and more. Video games take another chunk. Estimates vary, but one stat says Americans spend 4+ hours per day on mobile gaming for those who game. Though that seems high, it may include all phone use/games. In contrast, time spent reading for pleasure is 15 minutes a day on average, per the American Time Use Survey. This means for every one page someone reads, they likely watch 10 to 15 minutes of video content. It's not that people don't enjoy reading, it's that video is engineered to grab attention. It's more passive after a long day. So, the competition is fierce. Short-form content like TikTok 60-second videos or YouTube Shorts has further fragmented attention spans. Many people find it easier to scroll through quick hits of entertainment than to focus on a novel for an hour. Multitasking is the norm, i.e., someone might scroll social media while watching Netflix, leaving even less mental space for immersive reading. Additionally, interactive entertainment like video games offers an engaging escape that books must fight to match and appeal. The average video gamer, many of whom are in the prime demographic of 15 to 35 years old, might spend evenings in a virtual world rather than reading a novel. All this results in what some call a cultural attention deficit for books. The pandemic gave a brief advantage to books in 2020. When production of new TV shows and movies paused and people sought at-home hobbies, book sales climbed and many lapsed readers returned to reading. But by 2022-2023, streaming content came roaring back with endless new shows and book sales leveled off. Now, with the explosion of content, more streaming platforms, more games, always on social feeds, readers have to consciously carve out time to read. It's become a more deliberate choice, almost a form of digital detox for some. This is why we see things like the slow reading movement or people scheduling reading time as self-care. The competition will only intensify by 2030. More streaming services, perhaps immersive VR experience going mainstream, constant social media. These will continue to vie for consumers' time. However, there is a silver lining. As digital overload increases, some people will actively seek refuge in books, the anti-screen activity. We might see reading marketed as a wellness or mindfulness activity, a break from the dopamine rush of screens. The key for authors and publishers is to adapt without sacrificing the core joy of reading. This could mean cross-media storytelling. We may see books with companion video content, trailers, animations, to hook audiences, or transmedia narratives that span a novel, game, and a web series, meeting fans in multiple formats. This could also mean shorter content and serialization. To fit into busy lives, more authors might release novella-length works or episodic chapters, a la Wattpad or Kindle Vella, that readers can enjoy in one sitting, mimicking the episodic nature of TV. Community and interaction make reading a social experience. Online book clubs, author AMAs, interactive fiction where reader feedback can influence sequels. If people feel a part of a community like Book Talk, they're more likely to stick with reading as a hobby rather than flipping on the Xbox. This also could mean more audiobooks again. Audiobooks will continue to be a weapon against no time to read, converting non-readers into stories consumers during their commute or workout. This is one reason we project audio keeps growing. Quality over quantity. With the flood of media, readers will be drawn to what's exceptional. By 2030, mediocre, formulaic books may struggle even more to find an audience, unless bolstered by an online trend. Because people will think, why spend 10 hours on this book when I have 100 hours of top-tier shows in my queue? This raises the bar for storytellers to produce engaging, well-crafted fiction that can truly compete for attention. In summary, the leisure pie is not getting bigger. It's about fighting for a slice. More stories are fundamental to humans. The form in which the story is delivered might change, yet the authors who can create compelling narratives will find readers, whether via a printed page or a holographic headset. Our job is to ensure books remain a vibrant part of the entertainment mix in the face of all of these other options. The fiction landscape is evolving fast, but with change comes opportunity. As we've seen, Amazon's ecosystem is huge, but it gives indie authors more reach than ever. Audiobooks and new formats are bringing stories to people who wouldn't otherwise read. Social media can catapult an unknown novelist to stardom overnight. Yet, readers have more choices for their time than at any point in history. Heading toward 2030, authors who adapt to these trends, embracing digital platforms, engaging with online communities, diversifying formats, are poised to thrive. It's an exciting time to be writing fiction. The way stories are delivered might be changing, but the love of a good story is timeless. By understanding these trends, you can position yourself to ride the waves of change rather than be drowned by them. Keep an eye on the data, stay flexible, and most importantly, keep writing those amazing stories that transport readers from the chaos of daily life into the world of imagination. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive. If you found this useful, give us a like and subscribe for more insights. Happy writing and reading as we head toward 2030.